Characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Anicca, dukkha, anatta, lakkhana are called the general characteristics of all conditioned phenomena. Because they are found in all conditioned phenomena, they are found in all aggregates. They are found in all mind and matter process. It is very important that meditator must see these three characteristics, because without seeing them, you cannot progress in your practice of Vipassana meditation, and you cannot reach the stage of enlightenment. So in order to see these three characteristics, there is no other way but to practice Vipassana or Satipatthāna meditation. And we also need to know what conceal these characteristics. Why those who do not practice meditation cannot see the three characteristics, and how these concealment are broken. Actually, seeing these three characteristics, impermanence, suffering, and non-self nature, is not so easy. Now you are practicing very early morning, you wake up, and the whole day you practice continuously to see these natural phenomena, true nature of the Namarupa process. It is not very easy, because there are certain barriers that conceal them. According to the Visuddhimagga, Uddiyabhyana Amanasikara Santatiya Padiccanata Anicca Lakkhana Na Upatati. Impermanence is concealed by Namarupa continuity. The notion of continuity exists because people do not give attention to appearing and disappearing, or rising and falling. So there are two factors there: continuity, Namarupa process, and failure to see the rise and fall of the aggregates, or failure to see the appearing and disappearing of mind and matter. Mind and matter are continuously arising and disappearing, but people do not give attention to these process. So need to remember Visuddhimagga saying, impermanence is concealed by Namarupa continuity. Can you follow me? Impermanence is concealed by Namarupa continuity. Impermanence is concealed by Namarupa continuity. The notion of continuity exists because people do not give attention to rise and fall. Because people do not give attention to rise and fall. So continuously arising and disappearing, continuously rising and falling, of the Namarupa process, but people do not give attention to this process. So there are two factors, continuity and failure to see these rise and fall of the mind and matter. What is continuity? Actually, there is no continuity. It does not exist. It is only a notion. The notion that things are continuous, Namarupa process are continuous. And this notion concedes the characteristics of impermanence. Let us take some example. When you see something like a rope or a line in the distance, you think that it is a solid line, a solid object. But when you get in closer to that line, you see that it is not a continuous line. Actually, it is an army of ants or army of termites. One termite following the other. On seeing that they are termites, you lose the notion that it is a continuous line, which is correct, which is the fact. The continuous object or just the individual termites, you see a line of termites as a distance, but the fact is that there is not a line. What is true is the termite, but not the line. Yet you think that it is a line of termites. Why do we think that it is a line? A continuous thing. Why do we not see it as something made of segments or individual small things? Because it is because we do not see the individual things. We cannot see them arising and disappearing. Suppose there is the beginning of one termite and its end is followed by the beginning of another termite. And that second termite's end is followed by the beginning of another termite. And the end of the termite is followed by the beginning of another termite, and so on. Between the termites, there are gaps. They are not connected as a solid whole. But from a distance, these gaps or these breaks between the termites cannot be seen. So we think we have seen a continuous line of them. However, there really is no such thing as a line of termites. There are just termites following one after another. When you cannot see mind and matter, or parts of your mind and matter as separate from one another, arising and disappearing, you may think they are a continuous flow, although you have read or you have been taught that they are not continuous and are composed of small parts. If you do not meditate, if you do not really see the arising and disappearing, you will stay think in terms of one continuous thing. What do you think? Your body today is one continuous process from the body yesterday? Or that you have the same body, or that you had yesterday? Or is it a different body? At every moment, material particles are arising and disappearing, but you do not see them. Only when we practice Vipassana meditation, diligently can we see them. When we see the material particles arising and disappearing, one material particle arising and disappearing, followed by another material properties and so on, only then will you be able to get rid of the notions of continuity. Then you will realize that there is no continuous phenomenon going on, but actually small parts arising and disappearing one after another. It is the same with the mind. You think that you have the same mind that you had 10 years ago, last month, or yesterday, but through your Vipassana practice, you will find that mind is new at every moment. In one moment there is one mind or one consciousness, then it disappears. Now hearing consciousness and thinking consciousness and seeing consciousness and touching consciousness disappear and is followed by another type of consciousness which disappear and is followed by another type of consciousness and so on. When you can see them as separate moments, falling one after another, you are able to break the notions of continuity. Once it is broken, you will have no sense of continuity, and the characteristics of impermanence becomes clear to you. Let us take the sheet of paper as another example. Do you think that we use pen and ink on this paper because it is solid or opaque? We use it to write on and wrap things up. So we assume that it is solid. We all think that way, but if you look at this sheet of paper under a powerful microscope, you see that it is an object that has more empty space than solid material. So which is the truth, a solid sheet of paper or something full of empty space? You see a sheet of paper, but we put the paper under the powerful microscope that can magnify about 2,000 times and find that our notion is wrong. Now you see that it is really something with a lot of empty space. So seeing is not believing. seeing is misleading. We needed a powerful microscope in order to see the truth about this piece of paper. It is no longer a smooth, continuous sheet of paper. It is a thing full of holes. You may also think of the combinations of mind and matter, the five aggregates, as being one whole continuous thing. Here in this meditation hall, no microscope. No microscope can help, but in practicing Vipassana meditation, continuous and precise practice is needed. Then you will be able to see mind and matter as separate entities arising and disappearing. Seeing them arising and disappearing at every moment, you are able to break the notions of continuity, Nama Rupa continuity. Vipassana knowledge is the powerful microscope you use to discover the characteristics of impermanence. Just as a microscope is needed to see the truth of a material, we need Vipassana knowledge in order to understand the truth of our mind and matter, the truth of the five aggregates, and to see their impermanent nature. One sub-commentary said that a person who rightly sees rise and fall does not see phenomena manifest in a connected state, but rather in a state of disconnectedness, like iron dots. You may have seen iron spikes. They are like iron dots and they are separate one from another. To a person who practices Vipassana and can see the rise and fall of the aggregates, the mental and physical phenomena no longer appear as connected, but are separate and unconnected. Once you see this disconnectedness of Namarupa process, you see that they are not continuous, but they are composed of many separate parts. You come to understand that these constantly arising and disappearing Namarupa are impermanent. But as long as you think that they are continuous, it is impossible to see their impermanent nature. The notion of continuity must be removed if the meditator is to see impermanence and know it to be the characteristics of the aggregates. To get rid of the notions of continuity, we need to watch these Namarupa. We need to see that the aggregates arise and disappear. Once the arising and disappearing of the aggregates are seen, you will be able to rid yourself of the notions of continuity. When this notion is broken, the nature of impermanence manifest itself clear to you. So we need to practice Vipassana in order to understand, in order to see the three characteristics, nature, dukkha, and anatta, impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Here, one instruction for meditation, the story of Putila Thera. During the time of the Buddha, there was a monk named Putila. Venerable Putila was very learned and he was the teacher of many students, but he was not interested in the practice of meditation, so he did not practice meditation. Whenever Venerable Putila came to the presence of the Buddha, Buddha called him Tocha Putila. That means vain Putila or useless Putila. Buddha called him because he did not practice meditation. When Venerable Putila heard the Buddha call him vain Putila or useless Putila, he was shaken. So he took that hint and tried to practice meditation. So he went to the place where 30 Arahants were living. He went to the most senior Arahant and requested him to teach him a subject of meditation. The Arahant thought that he might be too proud because he was very learned. So the Arahant did not give him instruction, but sent Venerable Putila to the monk next to him in seniority. Also, that monk did the same thing, sending him to the next monk in seniority. The same thing happened with each monk until he came to the last monk, who was only 7 years old, but who was also an Arahant. So asked the 7 years old Arahant to give him a subject of meditation. The 7 years old Arahant said, Bande, I am only a 7 years old and I am inexperienced. Actually, it is I who must learn from you and not you from me. But the Venerable Putila insisted that the young Arahant give him instruction for meditation. So the young novice asked him if he would do whatever he told him to do. Venerable Putila said, yes. And the novice Arahant said, Pandit, there was a pond near where the monks stay. Pandit, go into that pond. When Samanira said, Venerable Putila, without asking any question, he just entered into the pond until the edge of his robe got wet. Then the novice said, Pandey, please stop. And Putila stopped. After that, the novice was satisfied that the Venerable Putila had no pride in him and he would follow whatever instruction were given to him. So he said, Bande, suppose there is a mound where an iguana or a lizard lives. Suppose there are 6 holes in the mound. In order to catch that lizard, you have to close the 5 holes and you have to sit at the 6th hole to catch it when it's come out. This is my instruction for meditation. That means you have to close the 5 senses and you have to act with the mind or you have to act with the mind. That much was sufficient for the monk Bodhila to understand. What the novice meant was not that you must close your eyes or you must close your ear in order to practice meditation. Even though it may be possible to close your eyes, it may be possible to close your ears, it is not possible to close your nose, tongue and body. What he meant was that whenever some object is presented to these 5 senses, do not let there be the impulsion stages. Just stop at the decision stage and then go over to the mind door and practice Vipassana meditation. Actually, he had to practice Vipassana meditation immediately. So whenever an object is presented to you, you must try to stop the process of thought at the moments of decision and not to let it go over to impulsion moment. So that instruction need to remember. The first one is, for example, suppose there are 6 holes in the mound. In order to catch that lizard, you have to close the 5 holes and you have to sit at the 6 holes and catch it when it comes up. So instruction, follow me. Suppose there are 6 holes in the mound. There are 6 holes in the mound. In order to catch the lizard, you have to close the 5 holes. You have to close the 5 holes and you have to sit at the 6th hole. You have to sit at the 6th hole to catch it when it comes out. So 6 holes and 5 holes have to be closed and you have to wait at the 6th hole to catch the lizard when it comes out. So that means whenever some object is presented to these 5 senses, do not let there be the impulsion stage. Just stop at the decision stage and then go over to the mind door and practice Vipassana. So that is a meaning. To be clear, can you follow me? Whenever some object is presented to these 5 senses, whenever some object is presented to these 5 senses, do not let there be the impulsion stage. Do not let there be the impulsion stage. Just stop at the decision stage and then go over to the mind door and practice Vipassana. So that means you have to practice Vipassana meditation immediately. Whenever the object is presented to you, you must try to stop the process of thought at the moments of decision and not to let it go over to the impulsion moments. Impulsion in Vidama it is called javana. So the Venerable Bodhila practiced according to this teaching. And after some time, Buddha delivered a stanza to him, and Venerable Bodhila became an Arahant. So if you understand this instruction, your meditation will progress very fast. So it is possible to practice or to follow this instruction and to stop the flow of the moments of consciousness from reaching to the impulsion stage or javana stage. It is very difficult. It needs a lot of practice, patience, and perseverance. You have been practicing meditation very diligently. You understand practice needs a lot of patience, perseverance, and continuous and diligent effort is needed. So that is what the Buddha meant when he said, Dite Dita Matam Bodhisati. There will be only the seeing with regard to what is seeing. And with the others, we should understand similarly. Sute Sutta Matam Bodhisati, with regard to what is heard, there will be only the heart. With regard to what is hearing, let there be hearing with regard to what is hearing. So when you hear something, stop at just hearing. Do not take it as permanent because it disappears quickly and it is not pleasing because disappearing very fast. So it is displeasing. So Buddha instruction is just stop as hearing and capture the true nature, the impermanent suffering and non-self nature of this hearing. If your practice is very skillful, you can capture it clearly. So just stop with the hearing consciousness after the decision consciousness and let it go there. Here also will it be possible to stop at the hearing and not go over to the impulsion stage. Yes, it is possible, but again, it is very difficult because we are used to hearing sound and making judgment on the sound, so much so that it is almost impossible for us to stop at just hearing. Hearing is also a very complex process. It is not just one moment of hearing. There are different moments of hearing. There are different moments of consciousness, different moments of thoughts involved in one act of hearing. Now when you hear something, some noise, you don't just hear the noise, you also determine where the noise comes from, whose noise is it, how far it is, from which the direction it comes, whether it's come from a faraway place or a nearby place. Also, if you are familiar with the sounds of ambulance, sounds of the aeroplane, you can determine if it is the sound of an engine, the sounds of a car, the sound of a person, the sounds of animals, and so on. All these your mind computes in just a fraction of a second. Then you can say that you hear the sounds of an aeroplane, a car, and so on. In a fraction of a second, you can compute all these things in your mind very, very quickly. You do not hear just the sound or noise, but you also hear all these details. So in hearing a sound, there runs the same series of thought process. When we practice meditation, we should be able to stop at just hearing or at just what is heard and not go over to the impulsion stage. It is very, very difficult, but you practice diligently and it is possible to you. And when we talk about these things, the working of our mind, we have to magnify things so we can understand well, just as when scientists explain about the structures of the molecules, etc. So we have to magnify thought movements billions of times so that we can see or we can understand the working of the mind. So with regard to the heart, there will be only the heart, there will be only the hearing. And with regard to the reach, Mutte Muttamastam Bodhisati, there will be only the reach. When we smell something, when we taste something, when we touch something, there are only these kinds of thought process. With regard to the cognize, there will be only the cognize. Cognize here means those cognized by mind and not directly by the five senses. So the instruction here is just be mindful. Applying mindfulness with diligence constantly so that you can stop at just what is seen, what is heard, and so on. So you have many experience when your meditation and when your mindfulness getting strengthened. You see that process very clearly. That is because if we cannot stop there, if we cannot stop at just what is seen, we will surely reach the stage of impulsion. And also the later stages of seeing, hearing, and so on. And so we will have attachment, or we will have aversion or delusion with regard to all these objects. When there is aversion, when there is depression, or when there is attachment, there will be what we call karma formation. And when there are karma formation, they are bound to be becomings or rebirths. So this cycle of suffering goes on and on and on. If we cannot stop at just what is seen, what is heard, and so on. In order to stop these rounds of suffering or rounds of rebirth from going rounds and rounds and round, we have to do something at the moments of seeing, hearing, and so on. Vipassana is concerned with primarily what is at the present moment. For a Vipassana practitioner, the present moment is the most important, especially in the beginning stage. The practitioner only takes care of beginning, takes care of what is at the present moment. Later on, when you reach the higher stages, you may practice Vipassana on things of the past. You may practice things of the future. However, you cannot practice on things of the past, things of the future, if you have no direct experience of the present, no direct knowledge of the impermanence, suffering, and non-self of the present. So what is important is to see the present as impermanence, suffering, and non-self. From the impermanence of the present nama-rupa, mind and body process, you can infer that the past must be impermanent and the future must be impermanent. So what is important for the Vipassana practitioner is the present moment. A practitioner must not lose mindfulness at any time. That is because if you lose mindfulness at any moment, you will grasp at the things that you see or you hear. When there is grasping, when there is clinging, there are karma formation and so on. So it is important not to miss to note anything when it is present. Once it is grasped by way of attachment or wrong view, tanha and ditthi, it has already been clung to and we cannot undo it. So what is important for a Vipassana practitioner is the present moment. We cannot afford to miss to note anything which is at the present moment. When we pay attention to what is at the present moment, we don't have to worry about what is past and what is in the future. In another sutta, Buddha advised us to live in the present moment, to take care of what is in the present moment. So in the Malija Buddha, Buddha told Malija Buddha the results of Vipassana meditation. Malija Buddha, Buddha said, when of these things seen, heard, reached, and cognized, in what is seen, there will be only the seen. In what is heard, there will be only the heard. And in what is reached, there will only be the reached. In what is cognized, there will only be the cognized. Then you will not be with that. Maluja Buddha, Buddha said, when you are not with that, then you will not be there. When you are not there, you will not be here, nor there, nor in both. And Buddha said, this is the end of suffering. That means when you can stop at just what is seeing, heard, and so on, because your mindfulness very strengthened, and you capture the true nature, and you will not be with attachment or anger or delusion. When you are not with the attachment or anger or delusion, you will not be there. That means you will not be tied down to attachment and so on. So when you do not have attachment or anger or delusion with regard to what is seen and so on, you will not be in this life, you will not be in another life, you will not be in both life. That means when you practice meditation and when you have no attachment or anger or delusion to things seen, heard, and so on, and you go from one stage to another of Vipassana knowledge, and when you reach the final stage of your realization, you experience Nibbana directly. So when you experience Nibbana directly, at that moment, you are not said to exist. There is no you at that moment, just the realizations of Nibbana. And so the next life also there will be no you, and in both there will be no you. This is the end of suffering. When you come to the realization stage and becomes a noble person or reach the stage of arahantship, there will be no rebirth for you. So that is the end of suffering. That is what we call Nibbana. In the Malika Buddha, Buddha said. So Vipassana meditation will lead us to the final realizations of Nibbana or the final cessations of suffering. This is the result to be gained from the practice of Vipassana and mindfulness meditation. So we will continue tomorrow. We have to stop our discourse for today by practicing Vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the six senses, and experience Nirvana directly at the moment you are not to exist, by noting, rising, falling, sitting, stretching, bending, seeing, hearing continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all meditators realize the real peace in the very near future.